Don't tell me to cool down, man.
What we're trying to provide or promote is an officer who does his job, does it well, does it efficiently, who does in fact produce, but who at the same time is a very humanistic individual, who understands his community, who understands himself and his department. Okay. He's told you in probably 20 different ways what the problem is. Does anybody know? One of the officers already has identified it.
He wants him back, but she doesn't want him back.
I'm not telling them not to use force, because there are those instances and those times when they must use force. But also what I'm saying is that there's all different ways to establish your authority as a police officer. You can establish authority by humor. You can establish it by showing concern. Pure physical force is not an absolute. That's not the only way one controls a situation.
What I need is a woman, man, but I can't seem to find myself a woman, though. I'm looking for it in this one right here, but I can't seem to find one. I've been getting drunk almost every night since I've been home, you understand?
What's the problem? He's screaming it to you.
Seems like it might be sex.
Okay, why didn't you say it earlier? It's a very simple thing. Till he started screaming. Plain old sex.
But the Oakland police do more than just talk about violence prevention in their academy classes. Each time an officer must use force in the performance of his duty, it's reported to a computer. And periodically, the computer selects out those officers with an unusually high number of such critical incidents. They are then invited to appear before a panel of fellow officers who review in meticulous detail his handling of situations that resulted in violence.
We're asking you to be very candid with us. We're asking you to admit your mistakes. Every guy on this panel has made some of the same mistakes that you've made. None of us here that are perfect. What we're trying to do is find better ways of doing things.
The action review panel is both voluntary and confidential. No record is kept and no disciplinary action is involved. An officer may sit for as long as 8 hours while his peers question and analyze his actions, his judgments, his personal attitudes, even his mannerisms. Yet since the panels were started in 1971, no man has refused to participate. The moderator of the action review panels is Officer Bob Crawford of the Conflict Management Section. In this case, the first ever filmed, the man in the hot seat is Officer Bernie Gerhardt.
Details. Complainant states suspect had an illegitimate child 3 weeks ago but refuses to stay home and care for the child. Suspect would not talk to ROs and had to be physically subdued to be taken into custody.
Okay, what happened?
I don't remember it.
Do you realize that things like this are official records that can be subpoenaed into court, and you could be put on a stand, being sued, and somebody could hit you with a report just like that? And like you say, 6 months later you might remember it. 2 years later you'd be looking at the guy and say, well, I had to physically subdue a 17-year-old girl who had only been out of the hospital for 3 weeks after having given birth to a baby, and I don't remember a thing about it. It could color you looking very, very poorly.
He has sat on panels before, but I think it struck him being kind of different to be sitting in that seat rather than in one of the other seats.
You could have had your head blown off with your own gun.
What if you had a machine gun? I don't know.
All right.
You'd have killed both of us.
Listen to what he's saying. This is the
I
thing.
am.
You could have had your head blown off with your own gun.
I know that.
You can't handle two guys properly. I don't care how great you are.
In his case, he realized he had a small man's complex. He kept thinking that he had to take the first affirmative action in an arrest situation to overcome the small man thing, which he doesn't have to do, because he works very effectively.
I might be wrong about what the whole object of these panels are, but when a person starts showing up with one of these after another, we're supposed to look into why. And I just wanted to ask the question, is he one of these men? He's not as big in stature as some of us, and it's appeared in about 4 or 5 of his remarks. I've talked to a lot of belly button and all things. Does he have a small man's complex, and he's taking it out on the kids? I just want to, you know.
Okay, the thing about the size, Okay, when I first came on, I did have a size problem. I'm only 5'8", and I was 155 then, and I had what this comic referred to as a small man complex. I'm not defensive about it. I don't think I am.
Well, the fastest...
I'm quicker to act because I'm aware of my size, especially when the person is bigger than me.
If there was no peer panel, if there was no one to call attention to the fact that an officer did have a particular problem, whether it be a small man complex or what have you, he would act this out in the street, and it would be misread. I have seen the real hard egg come up here, sit through the panel, totally reject the panel, yet go out and do a different job than he was doing before.
You pointed up some things that I was aware of, as sort of halfway, and didn't think it was really showing too much. It's good to have other people tell you something that you think you're already aware of, because then you know that other people are aware of it, and you'll make a better effort to control it or whatever, I think. Well, that panel was good. You picked a good panel. There isn't an officer here that I don't respect. And from that aspect, I think it's good. If there were a bunch of turkeys sitting here, I'd have left a long time ago. And you'd have heard about it in the locker room.
The suspect is considered 5150, should be considered armed and dangerous. Both are wanted for conspiracy and forgery.
Since the inception of the Action Review panel and other self-study techniques, there has been a dramatic drop in the number of conflicts between the police and the people of Oakland. Resistance to arrest and assaults on police officers dropped as much as 30% in a single year, while citizen complaints against police officers have been cut in half. But policemen are traditionalists. Many still admire the ideal of the super cop, the tough, resourceful, and courageous lawman who always catches the crook. And some of Oakland's finest are still uncomfortable with their department's new style and philosophy.
There's basically two parts to the job. One part is enforcing the law, and the second part is let's say, helping people. Our relationships with people are a whole lot better than they used to be. But as far as enforcement of the law, we're slacking off, and that's part of the job.
John Dixon works in the hardcore ghetto of West Oakland. The neighborhood is very poor and almost exclusively black. It is not an easy beat for a white policeman working alone.
You've got to be realistic. Your child may go through some more as a result of my talking to her.
I don't think he can go through no more than any other kid that's on the street, too.
I am of two minds. The move has been good. We're dealing with the people in a much better frame of mind. The results are much better. When I go into people's houses, it's you don't get as much of a hassle as you used to do. And yet at the same time, you're still respected as policemen. The public accepts us more than they did before. I find that in most cases I get a lot more cooperation. And you find that more people are at least willing to give you information on the side than they were before. More people are inclined to give you a helping hand, where before I think very few people were.
Burglary? My car hasn't been involved in no burglary.
That's what I understand.
I just came from my girlfriend's house.
I remember when I first came on that if you did make a car stop, you immediately got a crowd. Today, you not only don't normally gather the crowds, but when you do gather a crowd, it's the people don't tend to be as hostile. The quality of the arrests we're making now are much better, no doubt about it. But I think that we're getting kind of lethargic. We're sitting back. We're accepting the fact that we're a service-orientated department, which I think a person is inclined to think that we're at the beck and call of people. And I think that's what a lot of us are doing. We're just sitting back, waiting to be called.
Unless you want to run them here.
We're more community relations orientated, more of a service type department, and I think at the expense of enforcement, law enforcement.
The so-called service style is not per se a weak approach to the problem at all. If anything, it's a stronger approach. You can have an effective, alert police department which does in fact engage in heads-up police work, aggressive patrol. That's what the community wants. That's why we exist.
Would you like the department to go back to the head-knocking, legalistic department that it used to be?
No. I don't think anybody wants it to go back that far. Not that far.
Why?
It would just create the same old problems we had before, a hostile society, problems on the simplest of things, just talking to people on the street. I don't think we'd have as much success if we went back to that.
I believe, probably more than I believe anything, that the officers in this department do in fact want to do and do in fact accomplish a very capable level of policing in the Oakland community. I believe that they support totally the concept that any police organization can only operate in a fair and lawful manner.
Do you think you have to make a choice between community relations and good enforcement?
No, I think they can work hand in hand. It's obvious they can.
Hey you, Mr. Police. You better heed the people warning, cause the handwriting is on the wall. Hey you, Mr. Police Chief. You better heed the people warning, cause the handwriting is on the wall. So have fun while you can. Just like the wall of Jericho, you're bound to fall.